Hello and welcome to iCatholic. I'm Wendy Grace. Well, the synod process has already begun here in Ireland, but it's a long one. It's going to be happening over the next couple of years. But what is a synod anyway, and what does it mean for you and your parish? Well, join with me in studio to discuss this. I have someone who's probably a bit of an expert in synods because they did their own local synod a few years ago, Bishop Brendan Leahy, who's Bishop in Limerick. Bishop Brendan, thank you for joining us.
Thanks very much, Wendy.
So this isn't your first rodeo, as they say, because you've kind of walked this road before. Tell us a little bit about your experience of synods.
Well, it's true. In Limerick in the year 2016, we had our own synod, 400 people, mostly lay people, men and women, together with the clergy. Then we had a wonderful, wonderful experience. But it wasn't just the 3-day event of the synod. It was the 1.5, 2-year lead up to it that in many ways made the synod. The word synod means journeying together. You know, you're on a journey and you're together and you're talking about it and you're trying to work out together what's the direction to take. Basically, the synod in Limerick provided us with wonderful opportunities, not just to talk among ourselves, but also to reach out. For instance, we had members from other churches, indeed other religions, speaking to us during the synod. And some people were very creative. They set up a stand in the local shopping centre maybe and got impressions from people in the local shopping centre. We reached out to groups like the Travellers, or in my own case in the city, I held a day just for people of the city, civic leaders. What's the mission of our city and how is it going? So, and what can the church do? So it was a wonderful experience. And I think apart from, what's came out of it, this or that, the fact of having an event where you're beginning to learn how to be together, listening, to learning from each other, trying to work out together, how to go forward, that's a big experience in itself.
And it's going to be a bigger experience now because the synod that's underway now is global. And it's going to be happening in parishes all over the world. But what does it mean for Ireland? So it's a journeying together across the country, but how will that work?
Yeah, we've a 2-in-1 process going on in a way. We're getting good value for money. Basically, last March, the bishops in Ireland had launched what they called a synodal pathway that's going to last 5 years. But just around the same time, just a short few weeks later, Pope Francis also launched a synodal pathway for the whole church. Now, Pope Francis wants that within this year, we will do a lot of reflecting together on how, as people of faith across the church, we're getting on with one another. That's basically, I think, the question, my language anyway, that's the question he's asking. And how are we reaching out to other people? The 3 technical terms are communion, participation, mission. They're the 3 technical words that Pope Francis wants us to reflect on. How are we getting on with one another? How are we reaching out to other people? Now in Ireland, when we heard Pope Francis's invitation, we realised, well, this is fantastic because this provides us, as it were, in Ireland, with the first steps for our 5-year process. We will hope to get into next year looking at, well, what topics do we want to talk about in Ireland when we're going to have a synod, or what themes should we look at? But Pope Francis is helping us, starting with a kind of a scoping exercise. Before you get into all those kind of talks, how are you getting on together? How are you getting on together within your parish, within your diocese, within the country, with religious orders, within the whole, not just Ireland, across the globe? How is Ireland, the church, contributing? So they're good questions, and we're starting locally in your own local group or parish or movement or group. How are you getting on?
So that's probably a key thing for people to connect up with is these conversations are happening, but you got to join up and take part in them.
Anybody can join, and of course, I know a lot of parishes are beginning to get going. There's a growing momentum. These things take time. There's a growing momentum. We have 5 years, of course, in Ireland. We can't say everything this year. This year is the first question, but local parish groups are starting. The parish councils are asking themselves questions. For instance, in Limerick, and I know 1 or 2 other dioceses are doing this, we're asking 3 simple questions. How was the COVID experience for you as a parish? What does faith mean to you today? What brings you joy about the faith? What maybe is more difficult for you in terms of faith? And then the third thing in the parish, look around you. Are there groups you might reach out to? There might be the GAA, there might be a drug recovery centre, there might be an alcoholics group. Is there somebody in your parish, people in maybe in divorced, remarried, and you'd like to hear their views? That can happen in every parish. Now, it can happen formally, where the parish council sets up something, the priest sets up something. But I think smaller groups can happen. And I have a good friend in America, and I liked what he said on Thanksgiving Day. He found himself with his family, and by chance, big family, he happened to be at table with his young members of the family. So we just opened up this discussion and said, Pope Francis has launched this idea of a synod. Tell me a little bit, what do you think today of the church and the faith experience? And he said it was a really interesting conversation. So I think for all of us, maybe we might find opportunities locally to have little conversations, might be 2 or 3 people, and then maybe write up just a little feedback on that, give it into the diocesan centre, whatever. This is the feedback that came from my conversation.
And is it as well, Bishop, about really hitting that point home? And it's something Pope Francis has spoken about a lot, is he's trying to make sure that the church is, as you say, this journeying together in this synod process, lay people and religious all working together. It's almost like, in business terms, they talk about inverting the pyramid. It's not coming from the top down, it's coming from the ground up. Is that the point? That's
very much so, yeah, absolutely. He also puts it this way, he said, let's try to reach out beyond the 2 or 3% of people that we normally deal with. And I think this is a big desire on his part, to really reach out to others. So I know, for instance, I know my own diocese, we're looking at the whole area of reaching out to those in prisons, those who are the homeless. That's going to be important for us. But you are right, and it's a joint exercise. It's the religious orders, it's the lay groups, movements, it's people who are very much involved in church, and the hope would be people maybe who are kind of there but not really that committed, but want to say something to us, and we want to hear it. And maybe those who might be quite critical, we want to hear their word. Yeah, so it's involving all of those.
What are your hopes for the process?
My hope is that really Synod brings with it light, in my view. In other words, if you really journey together, you'll understand what's to do next. We're in a huge time of transition in the church globally, but also in Ireland. And nobody can pretend or claim that they have all the answers. It's together we work things out. And this, of course, Pope Francis is very strong on this. We will need the Holy Spirit. We will need to pray. We will need to make sure that we're really listening deeply to each other. But together, some light will come that'll give us new energy and enthusiasm moving forward.
Well, I think it sounds like it's going to be a very fruitful process, and hopefully lots of people will get involved. Bishop Lee, thank you for joining us on iCatholic today. And the important thing for you now is to act on this process. Make sure that you connect up with your local parish and to see when those conversations that are happening and to see how you can get involved. And of course, cast the net wider. Is there others in your community, as Bishop Lee said, that maybe don't attend church that want to get involved in this conversation, so that we can go on this synodal pathway, this journey together?